Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another astonishing episode of History of the Marvel Universe. In a previous video, we discussed the origin of Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. She was trained by a clandestine Russian cell called the Red Room, in which she was molded into the ultimate espionage agent. However, Romanoff defected to the West, joining the American superhero group, the Avengers, and becoming allies with the vigilante Daredevil. With the Widow no longer loyal only to Mother Russia, operatives from the Red Room sought a replacement. One chosen candidate was a young girl named Yelena Belova. Beginning her training at the age of 15 over the following decade, Yelena underwent rigorous physical and mental conditioning. She was determined to succeed, but continually felt as though she didn't measure up to her predecessor, causing her to refuse the title. But as Yelena grew into a woman, her teacher, Colonel Starkovsky, developed an unhealthy attraction towards her, and he was ashamed of himself. Seeking an outlet to satisfy his desires, he hired a sex worker, a dominatrix named Petra, to dress as a Black Widow. However, Petra slowly became psychotic, eventually believing herself to be the true successor to the Black Widow, and murdered Starkovsky. While investigating her teacher's death, Belova spoke to the owner of the club where it happened, a woman named Nikki. Nikki was the one who arranged Starkovsky's relationship with Petra, and so concerned for the safety of both her clients and her workers, told Yelena everything she knew. In the end, Petra was exposed as the killer and was defeated and slain by Yelena Belova. After this, Belova accepted the mantle of Black Widow and became the only graduate of the Red Room to surpass Romanoff's marks. However, what she never discovered was that the club owner, Nikki, was secretly a Russian operative, and that Starkovsky's death had been planned by the Red Room as a way of testing Yelena's resolve. Yelena's earliest known mission as the Widow was the delivery of a special device to an American operative, one that would neutralize the barrier surrounding the inhuman city of Atalan. Although this first appearance was really more of a cameo. More noteworthy was her interference with a mission that Natasha Romanoff had undertaken in an attempt to prove herself the superior Black Widow. Natasha was working to halt the distribution of a biological weapon in the country of Rapistan, known as the Deathless Frenzy. Yelena sought to defeat her predecessor and deliver the weapon back to Russia. Natasha was far more experienced than Yelena and stayed one step ahead of her, but the younger woman's interference of course made her job more difficult. With the aid of a SHIELD strike force, Natasha faked her death in front of the younger Widow. Yelena subsequently attempted to secure the bioweapon on her own, only to be captured by the terrorists. This allowed Natasha to operate unhindered, and she defeated the terrorists, destroyed the bioweapon, and rescued Yelena. Yelena in turn attempted to fake her own death as she escaped, but Natasha knew better than to believe that she was gone. In fact, in an attempt to drive the younger woman out of a life of espionage, Natasha had SHIELD capture Yelena and swap their appearances. Yelena awakened in Natasha's apartment, looking like Natasha and not knowing why. Even Daredevil was in on this ruse, albeit reluctantly. Yelena attempted to hold on to her sense of self, but when she received anonymous instructions, her target was none other than Yelena Belova. And sure enough, at the appointed time and place, Yelena came face to face with herself. In the ensuing fight, the blonde Yelena, secretly a disguised Natasha, was seemingly shot and killed. This, of course, was a ruse planned by Natasha with fake blood. The real Yelena, trapped in Natasha's visage, was driven to a breaking point. Natasha's other reason for doing this was to get close to Yelena's superior officer, Yuri Stelienko. She learned that he was after hidden nuclear weapons and sought to stop him. While Natasha did that, Daredevil retrieved Yelena, allowing her to hear that Stelienko had been manipulating her for his own gain, and that she was completely expendable. Enraged, Yelena helped Natasha take down Stelienko, and he was arrested by SHIELD. And of course, in the end, despite Natasha's apparently good intentions, Yelena was appalled by the theft of her identity. After the widows each had their proper appearances restored, Yelena supposedly returned to the Red Room, feeling completely violated by the experience. Retiring from the life of a spy, Yelena moved to Cuba, becoming a model and starting a successful lingerie business. She employed sex workers as models, ostensibly for the sake of cost efficiency, but also as a way to get vulnerable women off the streets and protect them. Her opinion of Natasha evidently softened as well as she aided the widow during a mission in Cuba. However, Yelena's turn towards benevolence didn't seem to last. You see, around this time, the new Avengers were tracking a mutant criminal named Sauron, a search that brought them to the hidden jungle known as the Savage Land. There, they encountered a group of rogue SHIELD agents involved in an illegal mining operation evidently being conducted by Hydra, and for some reason this squad was being led by Yelena Belova. I have a theory as to why this is the case, but we'll get to that at the end of the video. Belova attempted to kill the intruders, including Sauron, shooting him in the head. However, being an energy vampire, Sauron was able to temporarily absorb Wolverine's healing ability and strike back. Unleashing a previously unseen power, Sauron torched Yelena with a flaming mouth blast, leaving her badly burned. While in the hospital, she was approached by a representative from Hydra, as well as agents of Advanced Idea Mechanics, an amoral organization of super scientists. The AIM agents offered Yelena a chance at revenge by imbuing her with the powers of a Super Adaptoid. For those unfamiliar, the Super Adaptoid was an android created by AIM which, as the name suggests, could adapt to any opponent by copying their powers and skills. With her new abilities allowing her to do the same through physical contact, Yelena was dispatched to attack the Avengers at their headquarters in New York. However, she was unable to absorb the same kind of power more than once, and so Iron Man was able to overwhelm her with a squadron of armored suits. Furthermore, while she copied the abilities of the absurdly powerful hero, the Sentry, she was unable to effectively control or wield them, leading to her capture. However, Hydra didn't want her to talk and initiated a molecular destruct device planted in her head, completely destroying the Yelena Adaptoid, causing her to melt into a puddle. And yet somehow this wasn't the end for Yelena Belova. She re-emerged yet again as part of a short-lived covert ops squad known as Vanguard, alongside the vampire hunter Blade and several others. I'll talk about how her resurrection most likely happened when we get to the theory section. The important thing for now is that the next time we see Belova was when she was being recruited by Norman Osborn to be the new leader of the Thunderbolts. This was during the Dark Reign, when Osborn was placed in charge of national security and had reorganized the Thunderbolts into his own personal Black Ops squad. However, the Yelena who was recruited onto the Thunderbolts wasn't the real Yelena, but rather Natasha Romanoff. Using a genetic camouflage to again impersonate her younger counterpart, Natasha had infiltrated the Thunderbolts, disguised as Yelena to spy on them and report back to Nick Fury. But in a double twist, it turns out that it wasn't actually Fury that instructed Natasha to infiltrate the Thunderbolts, but Norman Osborn himself using a Nick Fury hologram. Osborn had tricked Natasha into infiltrating his own team so that he could spy on them and test their loyalties. One might assume that this means that the real Belova died as the Super Adaptoid and that the Black Widow who fought alongside Vanguard was also Natasha in disguise. However, after Natasha escaped, it was revealed that Yelena Belova was indeed still alive and that Osborn was keeping her in suspended animation. Now, this is getting kind of complicated, so let's quickly recap what's happened so far. After their initial encounters, Natasha attempted to force Yelena out of a life of espionage, a scheme that involved stealing her identity. Upon regaining her sense of self and her proper appearance, Yelena retired to Cuba. For unexplained reason, she led a rogue SHIELD squad working for Hydra but was badly burned by Sauron. Hydra enlisted AIM to resurrect her, transforming her into an Adaptoid in the process, and after being defeated by the Avengers, Hydra pulled the plug and terminated Yelena. She inexplicably returned again, but this time was captured by Norman Osborn and left in stasis. And we aren't done yet, because while Osborn never activated her, Yelena's body was later recovered by advanced idea mechanics. She was then revived to serve as a Minister of State in their sovereign nation on AIM Island. During this time, she demonstrated that she still had access to her Super Adaptoid powers. Despite this, during a battle between the forces of AIM and the secret Avengers, Mockingbird was able to place a holographic image inducer on Yelena, causing the two to trade appearances, which resulted in Yelena being shot and killed by an AIM sniper. And now we're at the point where I will present my theory as to how and why Yelena returned and switched allegiances more than once. Naturally, some of this is unconfirmed, but I'll try to be clear about what is actual canon and what is conjecture. In Tales of Suspense featuring Hawkeye and the Winter Soldier, it's revealed that the Red Room has been growing clone bodies of their top agents. A psychic agent named Epsilon Red maintained a mental link with the Widows and kept a backup copy of their memories. In the event of a Widow's death, Epsilon Red could transfer their consciousness into a clone body, thereby reviving them. Furthermore, he's able to pick and choose which memories are transferred, allowing them to start fresh with an earlier version if desired. So, first part of my theory. I think the Yelena who led a rogue operation in the Savage Land was a clone with select memories. There are 2 points in which this clone could have potentially been dispatched. Either when Yelena faked her death to escape after her initial encounters with Natasha, or when Natasha made it seem as though Yelena had been shot and killed while posing as her. While the Red Room likely would have been aware that the real one was still alive because of the psychic connection with Epsilon Red, and she also reportedly returned there before retiring, they did imply that she was easily replaceable. Another piece of evidence supporting this hypothesis is actually within the release dates of the books in question. While the official Handbook of the Marvel Universe states that Yelena retired to Cuba before joining S.H.I.E.L.D. under unrevealed circumstances and then leading the rogue team, if we arrange the events in order of the book's release, it would actually go as follows. Yelena encounters the Avengers and is horribly burned by Sauron. Then she teams up with Natasha in Cuba without any sign of scarring, and then she's restored by AIM and becomes an Adaptoid. Obviously this makes no sense, which is why the Handbook changes the order, but even so, the release dates of the books imply that these events happened fairly close together. It seems odd that Yelena would go from helping Natasha to working for Hydra so quickly, unless the villainous Yelena, the Yelena Adaptoid as we'll call her, was a clone or imposter. This also leaves open the possibility that the Yelena who fought alongside Blade in Vanguard was the real one. That was after Yelena Adaptoid dissolved, and so she even commented that the world believed she was dead. As for the Yelena who Osborn kept in stasis, that was most likely another Yelena clone, but with the select memories of the Yelena Adaptoid. After the Yelena Adaptoid was destroyed, the Red Room may have resurrected her again, only for her to be captured by Norman Osborn. Either that, or the Yelena Adaptoid somehow restored herself from being a puddle of goo, probably by absorbing Wolverine's powers, but either way. She displayed her Adaptoid powers again, but only after being revived by AIM, the same group that gave her the powers in the first place. While working for AIM, the Yelena Adaptoid was killed yet again. There was no one around for her to absorb the powers from, leaving the original Yelena Belova alive. And for further evidence of this, during Natasha's plot to bring down the Red Room after all of this, she eliminated a very much alive Yelena Belova, I presume the original. Natasha was remorseful over this, and Yelena was shocked. Their interaction makes little sense if the last time Yelena saw Natasha was while the two battled on AIM Island. However, it makes much more sense if the Yelena Adaptoid was a different entity entirely, and the last time this Yelena spoke to Natasha was in Cuba as allies. And either way, at the end of all of this, Natasha destroyed the Red Room and killed Epsilon Red and the remaining clones, but not before resurrecting Yelena a final time, bringing her back in a cloned body with all of her memories intact. So to recap the full theory, after several encounters with Natasha, the original Yelena retired to Cuba. A clone was created by the Red Room that led a rogue SHIELD team but was torched by Sauron. This clone was transformed into Yelena Adaptoid by AIM but was killed during an encounter with the Avengers. The real Yelena came out of retirement to briefly fight alongside a group called Vanguard. The Yelena Adaptoid was resurrected, captured by Norman Osborn, and later revived by AIM only to be shot and killed once more. The real Yelena was later killed by Natasha, but then she was resurrected for a final time before Natasha completely destroyed the Red Room and their means to produce further clones. So what do you think of my theory? Leave a comment below to let me know. As for what happens next, Yelena has returned as Natasha's ally, so follow the current Black Widow series to find out what's next in store for Yelena Belova. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more Marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!